using an Englishman who was not a Jew, Cecil John Rhodes. Using him as a front man. They always use a front man. But they stood behind him. And they were able to manipulate the situation and gain control of the diamonds. The De Beers Consolidated Diamond Company emerged and taking control of the diamonds. And the Rothschild family in Europe finances now the mining operations. And the bulk of the wealth which now emerges out of South Africa land up in the hands of the Jews. In 1914, the Kimberley mine was closed down because it had yielded all that it could yield. The rest that now remained was just chicken feed. So they closed it down in 1914. When I went to that diamond mine in Kimberley, there were wheelbarrows filled with plastic cubes to show you, give you an estimate of how many diamonds came out of this diamond mine. There were 5 huge barrows filled, brim, heaping with these plastic cubes. That's how many diamonds they got. And these were sold in the market, the international market, at the premium price because they cornered the market through the consolidated De Beers to establish a monopoly to ensure that the price would not come down. The Prophet ﷺ cursed that. When Kimberley was closed down in 1914, the European Jew now had amassed the maximum wealth he could amass at that period of time. This is just about 17 years after the Zionist movement was established. Within these 17 years, Dajjal had struck and had delivered to the European Jew this massive windfall of wealth. And so now they are ready, in 1914, to move to the next stage. The philosophical and political systems are already in place, and now the military attack. To destroy the Khilafah, you'll have to destroy the Ottoman Empire. And you cannot destroy the Ottoman Empire with 5,000 Jews in an army. You need a world war to destroy the Ottoman Empire. That's a tall order. So what you do is you plan a conspiracy. And you stay behind so that your fingerprints are not on the crime. In other words, you plan a September the 11th. The attack took place in the summer of 1914 when the Grand Duke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated in Sarajevo. In the summer of 1914, there were 6 major powers in Europe. And there was one dark horse across the Atlantic. No one knew how fast it could run because it had never run in a race so far. One dark horse across the Atlantic. And 6 major powers in Europe. They were number 1, Russia, France, Britain, Germany, Austria, Hungary. That's 5. What's number 6? Turkey. Ottoman Islamic Empire. Ain't no Turkey as yet. Ottoman Islamic Empire. These are the 6 major powers. How can you bring about a world war which will result in the dismantling of the Ottoman Islamic Empire? You've got to do some good planning to do this one. When they attacked and assassinated the Grand Duke Franz Ferdinand, they left footprints which led to Russia. As on September 11th, they left footprints which led to Al-Qaeda and Saudi Arabia. The reason why, I forgot to mention this last night, the reason why they put so many Saudis on board the aeroplanes. You remember I told you about the Saudi who went to his government? He says, listen, I've heard in the newspapers and on CNN that I'm dead. It seems to me as though I'm alive. What they'd done was to hijack his identity and put it on board the plane. I forgot to mention to you last night why they had put so many Saudis. The reason for this is to attack the client relationship, the friendly relations between the United States and the government of Saudi Arabia. If you can replace this with a new relationship of mistrust and hatred and enmity, it'll now facilitate the Jews when they launch their big war to take control of the Saudi oil, which is about to happen. This is why they put so many Saudis on board the aeroplanes. Good. They left footprints which led to Russia. And so Austria-Hungary had no option but to declare war on Russia. But Britain and France already had a treaty, a defense treaty with Russia. The Secretary of State, or the Foreign Minister in Britain, was a Jew. And so Britain and France now had to declare war in favor of Russia against Austria-Hungary. But Germany has the same racial ties with Austria-Hungary, so Germany is now forced to enter the war on the side of Austria-Hungary. So they have succeeded. Whoever planned that assassination has succeeded in bringing all these powers now in Europe into a state of war. All that is left now is what they call the sick man of Europe. Who is that? Ottoman Islamic Empire. The Khalifa in Istanbul does not want to enter the war. He knows how weak the Ottoman army is in terms of military technology. But through internal intrigue within Istanbul, the Ottoman Empire is forced into the war, and a Russian ship in the Bosphorus is used as a pretext. Once the war started, that massive wealth which the Jews had accumulated is now going to be used strategically for the purpose of influencing the direction of the war to get the prize that the Jews want. What is that prize? To destroy the Ottoman Islamic Empire, dismantle it, and to cut off the head of Islam, namely destroy the Khilafah. That's the prize they're after. The next prize is to liberate the Holy Land and to get the Holy Land for themselves. This is the prize they're after. Between 1914 and 1916, German submarines now make a surprise appearance into warfare. As when Israel launches her big war, we're going to see weapons that the world has never seen before being introduced into warfare. When the German submarine entered into the war, it tipped the scales on the side of Germany, and by 1916 Britain was on the verge of defeat. German submarines had surrounded and marooned the island of Britain. The French government had fallen, and Germany had occupied France, and Britain was on her knees. This is the moment that the Jews were waiting for. Now the Czech is going to talk. It's called financial diplomacy. The Jews, this is the German Jews, went to the British government and said, let's make a deal. Let's make a deal. We will intervene in the war with massive financial assistance to you. Massive. And we will bring that dark horse into the race. But that dark horse didn't want to come into the race. American public opinion was overwhelmingly against involvement in the war. And the most famous American of all was not the president. He was a man who had established the assembly line for producing motor cars. And what was supposed to have been a luxury item for only the rich, or you could see how the rich people were grinding their teeth in anger when this man caused the motor car to become accessible to ordinary Americans. For $700 you can get a motor car. $1,000 you can get a Model T. What is his name? Henry Ford. And this man did something else to his workers. He didn't bother about what was the market wage. No. He said, I am concerned with paying a just wage. And that market wage is not a just wage. And so he paid his workers a higher wage than the market wage. And so he won the hearts of the American people. He became an American icon. His name was Henry Ford. And he was totally opposed to American involvement in the war. But when the Jews went to the British government and said, let's make a deal, the British government said, deal. And so Jewish money, the diamonds of Kimberley, began to roll. And Jewish money now enters into the war in a massive way. And Jewish influence over the media in the United States is now made to work, and American public opinion is being brainwashed and slowly transformed, until suddenly, to the consternation of Henry Ford and so many Americans, Franklin Roosevelt declares war, and the United States enters into the war. Britain, with this newfound wealth and with the assistance of the United States, now has a new lease of life, and the war now takes on a direction that the Jews wanted from the first place. It is in 1916 that Jassasa went to work with British spies in Arabia. Lawrence of Arabia, of course, is the most well-known of them. These British spies were sent into Arabia, posing as Muslims. And they went to two actors in Arabia, two. One was Sharif al-Hussein, who was appointed by the Khalifa in Istanbul as the Sharif of the Hijaz, Mecca and Medina, in control. Mecca was under the control of an Arab battalion, but Medina was under the control of a Turkish battalion. And I wish I could understand why the Khalifa insisted on the Turkish battalion under the leadership of Fakhri Pasha to defend Medina. I don't know why. So when the British spies went to Hussein, they offered him the moon. They offered him the moon. We will liberate the land of the hated Ottoman Turks, and we will give you independence and freedom, and you will now become the king of the Arabs. Remember, Britain is not talking about Khilafah. No, we'll make you the king of the Arabs. And we also prepared to offer you a little, you know what, just £7 million. Huh? £7 million at that time is what Bill Gates has now. Sharif Hussein, the great-great-grandfather of Abdullah in Jordan now, then betrayed the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, betrayed 1400 years of history of this ummah, violated the plain and clear command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran in Suratul Ma'idah, in which He commanded us, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tattakhizul yahuda wan nasara awliya. Do not take the Jews and do not take the Christians as your awliya. Do not establish an alliance with them.